Hey everyone, how's it going? It is Sunday, November 5th, and we're looking at the aftermarket of Friday session. So I've been away for a couple of weeks traveling. I'm finally back. Hopefully you can see, I don't know if you can see but I'm back in my office and looking forward to getting back on schedule, re-engaging, and just being able to just really focus in on the markets going forward. So let's take a look at what happened. We had a really big week in the markets. So we'll take a look at our S&P, and you see that it just went up and up and up every single day in the past week. We had these strong green bars. We have, even in the last 3 days, gap ups. So this big gap ups in the market. So let's take a look at what that means and if it changes anything in how we view the markets, especially in the short term. So before we do that, let's start with the broad view and work our way in. So we're going to start with the dollar, DXY. So after a period of upward movement and then a period of consolidation, it finally looks like on Friday we had a sharp movement downwards that brought us below these recent lows right here, and this might be a change of trend. This might be a downward motion in the US dollar. We'll have to see how that develops. If US dollar is weak, then more dollars are needed to buy the same shares, and so that's actually kind of bullish for the markets in the long term. In the short term, if it's weak, then that may not look so favorable for the United States, and people might be a little bit afraid. But for now, we're going to take this as a slight bullish signal. Let's take a look at it. TLT. TLT went screaming higher as well, big gap ups into that MA50, and then a strong red bar closing at the lows. So even though this went up very strongly, breaking through that EMA 20, we're going to take this with a grain of salt. This is a little too much too fast. That's definitely parabolic or beyond parabolic movement with these giant gaps up. So we see that we hit this EMA 50 right here as well. We hit our +2 ATR, and it is looking like it is overbought, so this may start to come down. So if there's any indication whatsoever that the Fed might actually increase rates, then this is going to start tumbling downwards. So let's take a quick look at our Fed watch. 37 days before the next Fed announcement, and right now it's pricing in that we're not going to do anything. So as long as this holds, then TLT can consolidate, not necessarily move up. I think the enthusiasm has already been done and probably overdone, so we may just start bouncing sideways in here. Let's see what it's looking like for January. January also pricing in no movement, and then here in March is where we start to see, hey, we might start moving off that target and either lower or increase, looking like lower. That is way optimistic in my opinion. We haven't seen indications that inflation is moving downward or moving downward strongly just yet. So that's a little too optimistic in my opinion, but for now it's looking like the market is saying that we're not going to expect those interest rates to be raised anytime in the next 2 or 3 months. So now let's look at the S&P. S&P, very strong movement, moved above the MA50, and it closed middle of the road in terms of the day. So right in the middle of the high and the low, that's where we ended. That is so strong. That is so strong. All these movements upwards, the gap up, unexpectedly strong, but we have paused almost perfectly at this horizontal resistance right here. So we'll see if we can get above it, and or at the very least have two lows above that MA50 before we get more enthusiastic about this movement that we've seen. And so right now we're mildly enthusiastic. You can see if I draw this through the tops, we're not quite there yet in terms of being above a channel where we can say we've broken out of it and that we've changed the direction. If I move and I sort of ignore these highs right here and just go through an average of these highs and then touch this high right here, you can see that yes, we are above it. So there is reason to be skeptical and reason to be optimistic. Then let's take a look at where we are in terms of, so if we connect these lows and then move it over here, okay, so we're kind of at the top of a channel, that EMA50 or that MA50, all around it in that same area. So really what we're going to be looking for is, do we get two lows completely above that MA50? And we'll be a lot more optimistic if that happens. And also, of course, we have that MA90, which is somewhat strong, but not super strong. It's not something that we absolutely need to pay attention to. So right now we are leaning towards mildly enthusiastic that we have changed trend, but we're not completely convinced yet. So I would assign the probability of continued upward movements at about 55 to 60% at this particular moment. That might change as we start looking at other factors, but for now that's where we are. Let's take a quick look at QQQ. QQQ above the MA50 as well. The low is above the MA50, so a little bit of a gap up right there. So very strong. We have already touched our MA90 and we stopped exactly at it. So this is actually a little bit stronger than S&P. This is looking really, really good. If we get that two lows above that MA50, or if we break above that MA90, that's going to be very positive news. If we look at Dow Jones very similar to QQQ, popped above the MA50, MA150. The high came near that MA90 and then pulled back a little. We're in between, so a little bit weaker than QQQ. So right now QQQ is strongest of the three. If we look at IWM, huge movement upwards into that MA90, so looking a little bit closer to the S&P, but not quite as strong. So we want to see IWM start outperforming before we're super enthusiastic about a strong upward trend. But for now, we are looking a little bit like we're going to favor the upward movement. Let's take a look at ARK, kind of our junk of the junk speculative stocks, but these are, you see we moved above that MA50, we got stopped exactly at the MA200. So a critical question is, in ARK, can we get above that MA200? If we can, that's going to be very good for the S&P and overall markets, because these are speculative. That means money is really coming in and starting to look for risk. Let's take a quick look at our sectors. And let's just see what happened yesterday or on Friday. So money coming into retail, small cap stocks, home builders, so anything that was interest rate related looks like these are really good. Home builders, real estate. Then we've got some semiconductors. Silver is up here for some reason. Then we've got building materials, communications, consumer discretionary, financials, XLK. Everything is positive except for energy. Energy went down. So all of this looks like it's going into interest rate related and somewhat speculative stocks. But the ones that are really growth, like XLC, XLY, XLK, those are all in the middle. So we're really seeing it go into home builders and real estate, small cap stocks and retail. So this is sort of mixed news. Some very enthusiastic, some somewhat less enthusiastic, but still overall enthusiastic. So it's looking like overall we're still getting this risk on movement, and we are still favoring that we can maybe get the two lows above the MA50 and the S&P 500, where it's looking like a stronger percentage. So at this point, my feeling would be about 60% chance towards the upward movement. Let's take a look at something we haven't taken a look at a while, and that is momentum within the markets. So let's go over here, and I'm going to go to my market performance. I want to see on a slightly different way how the markets are looking. So obviously on a 5-day and 20-day, everything's looking really strong. S&P, the energies on the 20-day basis are looking a little weak, but what does that mean? On a 200-day, 78%, we're going to expect a mean reversion. So that's what I would expect right here. Let's take a quick look at XLE. Yeah, so most stocks are above, and so we hit a little bit of a little resistance over here at the EMA 20, and we'll see. So it's, the current expectation is that it can move up and hit that MA 50 right here. I would put that as a higher probability than it moving back down and retesting that MA 200, especially based on right here on what we're seeing. That 200-day is not really changing. You can see it's really, really, really flat. So right now it's forming a very strong base for support, and we're looking to be moving upwards right here. Let's take a look if we can see any other large anomalies. 52, healthcare not looking so hot. Okay, so for now I would be avoiding healthcare. And let's see where our discretionary is, 37 versus 73%. Does this look like it is overdone? Where are all these? There's too many. There's too much stuff here. Maybe I won't look at that. It'll take me a while to get that looking the way that I normally am used to seeing it. Let's take a look back here and see if there's anything else. So Staples 82. Okay, so in the short term, this is really, really strong. That might revert. Let's take a look at our XLP. Yeah, we came up, we hit that MA 50, touched it. Looks like a little bit of a rejection from it. Staples are still looking a little bit weak right here, and they'll get weaker if money continues to move into growth and risk sectors. So right now, my favorite thesis so far is short the consumer staples. Maybe financials, materials, real estate, utilities. XLF. XLF looks like it could be strong though, so we're going to avoid that. XLB. XLB looks like it could hit some resistance here. So staples and materials. Then we had real estate and utilities. Real estate looking strong, but can it get above that MA 200? So we're going to watch this carefully, see what happens when it hits this 35 to 36 region right here. If it can continue to be strong, that'll be very positive. But if it hits this thing and goes down, then this is a nice short opportunity. So let me take a quick look at XLB again. Yeah, and then XLU. XLU having a little bit of trouble at that MA 90, and so I would want to see, does it bounce down, does it continue to that MA 200 before coming down? But for now, this is looking like it's a little bit overbought, but we want to wait and see. So the only one that's really ripe for picking is XLP. XLP looks like it's ready to fall. Yeah, So that's my favorite one right now, and then we would wait for developments in XLU and XLRE. Right, so if the defensive sectors are losing money, we're seeing some money going into the growth stocks. So overall, that is net positive for the markets. So in terms of the S&P 500, this is looking like it could continue. So we really want the confirmation of two lows above that MA50. See, this low was 433.01 and the MA50 is 433.25, so that is still a little bit below the MA50. QQQ, on the other hand, is looking very good. The low here was 364.52 and the MA50 is at 364.08, so this low is above that MA50 right there. That's looking very good. So in terms of opportunities, let's take a look at what we might favor to the long side, since right now we're saying XLP to the short side. So communications, energies, let's see what XLY looks like. Okay, so XLK has the two lows above that MA50 right now. XLK is looking really strong. So if I were to focus on longs, I would be looking in the XLK in the technology sector, and if on the shorts, I'd be looking at the XLP sectors. All right, so that's going to be the focus for the week. I'm just going to write a note for myself so I remember that. So weekly focus, XLP short and XLK long. And then let's take a look at how some of our suggested trades are doing. And after market gold spread 178, 179 doing very well. Let's go look at GLD. GLD is still looking strong. It's consolidating. So the next move would likely be upward. However, if the S&P 500 is strong and money starts moving into growth stocks, then we would actually expect this to pull back. So our trade is at the 178, 179 right here. That's below that MA200. So our trade is looking excellent. There's only 2 weeks left in it. So any chop sideways or movement upward or even downward movement into support will just be just fine. The trade will make the expected return. So that gold trade is looking excellent. And then we've got the Baidu Meta spread. Baidu Meta spread. So Meta just barely up, Baidu down a bit. So that spread hasn't quite worked out for us just yet. If you look at Meta, Meta is just fine. There's just fine. It's kind of hanging out. It's looking really good actually for a movement upward. It might not happen in the next 2 days, but certainly over 1 or 2 weeks, it's looking like there is a very good chance of it moving upward. And then we had the Baidu. So Baidu is unexpectedly strong, so 2 gap ups in a row above the EMA 8, so stronger than expected, but you can see that after trading all the way up here, it traded back down and closed near the open right here. So that's indicating a little bit of weakness. So we're still very optimistic that our viewpoint that Baidu maybe couldn't make it much further higher. Right now it's trapped in this consolidation range, and it may even weaken and go lower. So for now, we're good with these positions right here. So everything is looking really good. All right, so that's going to be it for today. So our theme of next week is we're going to keep a careful eye on whether or not the S&P 500 can get 2 lows above the MA50 in a row. And then we're going to keep a careful eye on XLP, see if that starts breaking down, giving us short opportunities, and then on XLK for long opportunities. And we're also going to keep our eye on energy, see if that starts to move upwards again. Okay, so let me know if you have any questions, and I'm back. So we'll be having our pre-market and after-market sessions at their regular time, and I look forward to seeing you all tomorrow morning.